I boomered it up, I guess. That's a good start. Hello, everybody. It's nice that you could make it on this lovely Tuesday night. Um, on this Tuesday night. So yeah, I hope everybody's been having a good week so far. I hope you had a good weekend. We're going to be covering the debate tonight. I'm going to have my friend Terellian on. He wanted to watch it with me. Who knows? We'll see if Serp or whoever um, also comes on, and Fritz or Serp or whoever. We'll see if somebody else messages me. But at the moment, I just have it planned for myself and Terellian. So let's take a look at the election prediction map as we have here. So this is where it currently stands according to the polls. Now, let's just do my prediction. So we're going to assume that there's ethics in video game journalism. We're going to assume that there has been defortification, that the Turks have gotten out the Great Bombard, that they've battered down the walls of Constantinople, and all that's left of the once great fortification is rubble. We're going to assume that. So let's see here. Let me just fill this out. So I have been hearing a lot of things about Georgia, that it maybe is. I've heard a lot of people say it's probably going to go red. Actually, here, let me just add tilt. That is probably going to go red. A while back, I remember hearing that they were pulling resources out of the state. I think the state goes back and forth between being lean Trump and being completely a complete toss-up. But I do think ultimately there's been a lot of changes to election laws in Georgia. I heard there's actually some chaos there because the current board is passing all kinds of stuff. I do think at the end of the day, Georgia is probably going to tilt towards Trump. What do people in the chat think? How do you think Georgia is going to go? I'll just give that a second. Sorry, I just have to share this on the Teams. No, not Teams. Teams is what I use for work. What am I talking about? Share it on Discord. Okay, let me just see what the chat is saying. Georgia will go Democrat. Georgia will go Republican. People are going back and forth. I am leaning towards Georgia going Republican, but it's going to be close. I don't think North Carolina is really a swing state. It depends if we're going to go off of this by. Okay, so they have been. I don't really see North Carolina as a swing state. So there's like two ways you can do this. There's the margin, and then there's the likelihood. Like for instance, I think there's pretty much 100% chance that Trump is going to win Florida. I think it's like 100% chance that Trump is going to win Florida. It might not be by like 10 points or something like that. Same with Iowa and Ohio. I think it's over 90% chance. Can I get a Discord? Let's grab a Discord link. Now, I'm pretty confident on what's it called again? I'm pretty confident on Nevada. I think Nevada might be going by a lean margin. I'm not sure. I'm about 60% sure Trump will win Nevada. I've heard a lot of things that the Democratic Party collapsed in that state, that it's been gradually trending Republican, that Trump's picking up with white working class and Hispanics, which are obviously most of the population of Nevada. I'm pretty confident Nevada is going to go red. Does it really matter? Not really. but we'll go with that. Now, Wisconsin, I'm gonna, maybe people disagree with this. I'm just gonna put Wisconsin as lean blue. The Republicans seem to just fuck up Wisconsin every single election cycle. They screwed it up in 2020. 2020. They screwed up the Senate. They screwed up the governor election. They screwed up the Supreme Court election. It just seems to me like, despite having a supermajority, they just never can actually go on and finish it off. So I'm going to put Wisconsin in the lean blue. I I I think they're going to fuck it up somehow. So now we have the three remaining states that will determine the course of the election. I'm going to do probably the crazy take. I actually, and this could just be me being nuts, I almost think it's more likely Michigan will go red than Wisconsin. I don't know. I have a feeling. I got that feeling. But I'm kind of, Michigan is probably the state that I'm the absolute least sure of all the states that we have. I do think ultimately Pennsylvania is going to go red. Looking at the registration data that's been going on there. Now, the problem with Pennsylvania is I don't think there's been as many grand bombars bringing down the fortifications, but I feel like Trump has a better coalition this time. I think RFK is going to help him. I think Tulsi Gabbard's going to help him. Um, I think Kamala has less appeal in Pennsylvania than Biden did. Even if a lot of Scranton Joe was complete and total bullshit, um, I don't really think. I don't know. I don't really think it's going to be the same. So I think Kamala is going to win. Sorry, I think Trump is going to win Pennsylvania. It's going to be close. Now, as for Arizona, um, I don't know. I've heard it go back and forth. I might say Arizona's really hard. Um, I'm slightly leaning. I'm like 51% for Trump on Arizona. You know what? Just for the sake of argument, let's make Michigan blue. But it's very it's going to be very close. So the easiest way for Trump to win is Georgia and Pennsylvania. If he wins both of those, he wins the election. So let's just set these back, the swing states back to gray. I don't consider North Carolina a swing state, so I'm not going to set it back. Uh, okay, so the combinations that Trump can win with are as follows. He can win with Pennsylvania and Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Arizona. I thought that he could win with. I thought there was another two-state combination he could win with, but I guess not. So he has quite a few. But like I said, it's going to be right down to the wire. It's going to be very, very close between the two sides. So North Carolina is technically a swing state. I don't really see Trump losing it, though. Um, I don't really see. I will say this: if Trump loses North Carolina, I think he's going to lose the election, and I think it's just there's not really a path to victory for him without it. I don't know. The polling is all over the place, though. Like, I honestly don't really know how to rate the polling because in some cases it seems like it makes sense. In some cases it doesn't. I'm just kind of very up in the air with how reliable the polling is and how Uh, one second. This message. The polling is. I don't know. I've seen it gone all over the ground. Let me just go back and take a look at this. Torture Room says Trump kind of lost his edge, to be honest. Maybe. I think to a certain extent, I think he's trying to run a more mature campaign. I'll say this. I don't think his campaign is as good as 2016. I think it is better than 2024. He's at least like trying to run as a unity candidate and actually trying to do it rather than whatever 2020 was that him running as like a generic Republican or something. I already know how this is going to go. Argent critiquing every single word Kamala says, making fun of her appearance, grown man using playground insults, real mature, acting confused, what, etc. Then saying based after everything Trump says. So that is the narrative. I don't know. Like once again, do people just want me to like be boring, to be low energy? It's like I can ramble on about policy if you want. I kind of feel like these things are, yeah, we talk about politics, we talk about something a little bit serious, but it's also just there for like for entertainment. Also, I just don't think policy really matters that much in this election. Esler, who used that term too, thanks for reminding me. Well, I kind of have to. I can't use the actual one. I predict dead air, a staple of Argent content. I don't really have that much. Let's see here. Dark Side Trump versus Kamala Rakeda. Let's go. You can't be fair to anyone you disagree with. It's impossible for you. And then the cope is, but they do it too. I don't really know what that means. Let's see here. Projection, using buzzwords again. Migrants eating people's pets. Rain was pretty traumatized by that, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, let's see. Hopefully Serp comes on. Election is very fortified this year. His 2020 campaign. Giuliani having hair dye running down his face. Take 500 milligram edibles and go into full review tech USA mode. Well, I do have my sleeping meds. I could take some of those, and that might have some kind of impact. So I guess just the other. I'll bring Terellian on in a minute. The other thing I guess just to kind of cover is the other thing I just wanted to cover is how I think this is how important this is. I think with regards to Trump, I feel like they've hit him with everything he possibly could be hit with at this point in time. Like they've called him a rapist, they've called him a felon, they've called him all kinds of stuff. So I feel like he has less to lose in this debate. That if he doesn't do as well, I don't think it's going to lower his floor that much. Because I think he has a higher floor but a lower ceiling. And Kamala has a higher ceiling but a lower floor, if that makes sense. I think there's a large percentage of the population that'll never vote for Trump. I feel like, though, the narrative has already been completely defined regarding him, and he's already been so poorly viewed by the media that it doesn't really matter. I mean, it can go further, but yeah. So you have that aspect to it. Now, Kamala has not been defined. She's done one interview. She hides in like the bunker with Biden and stuff like that. She hides there, and this is really like her chance for the American people to get to know her. So she fucks this up if she comes out drunk or high or completely incoherent and she just embarrasses herself. I don't know. I think that could be it. Like, we're down to the wire. If polls are to believe, this election is so close that even a percentage point or two might make the difference between victory or defeat. Even maybe 10, 20,000 votes. And if Kamala embarrasses herself and that costs her even a little bit of support, then that could really be the end of all things, the end of Kamala. And that's basically my thoughts on the matter. So we'll see how it goes. Now I'm going to bring Terellian on. Let's see. Actually, let me just ask Serp if he wanted to come on. Okay, let me just see here. Kamala will be drunk. Hello? What was that? Did someone just jump in? I thought I heard something. Oh, let's see here. Okay, that was weird. I don't know what that was. Anyways, let's see.
Greetings, Argent.
Oh, hey man. How's it going?
Are you already live, or
Yep, we are live. I was just
should we invite Serp on as well?
I messaged him. You can message him too if you want.
Oh no, he wants to. He wants to join.
Oh, okay. I'll send him.
We already discussed it.
Okay. I just
ready.
hadn't asked him because I just never know. He just seems quite busy these days. So
Oh no, well I asked him and he said he was very interested.
okay.
So just send him the invite.
Yep, I figured out we can watch this on SciTube, so I can pause it. Hit the pause button. So, what do you think about the election? Let's get a Canadian perspective, other than this Canadian perspective.
So when you say that, do you mean do you want my prognosis, or do you want or do you want my opinion on who I want to win?
A little from column A, a little from column B.
So I have no idea who's gonna win. I'm 50-50 on this. Given that Kamala now supports people who eat cats,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking maybe I'm leaning Trump. Now as for who I want to win, I mean, it goes without saying that I support Trump. I'm not particularly enthusiastic about Trump. I don't think the energy is there. I don't think he's a great candidate. But Trump is not going to ship
20,000 Haitians into a town of 40,000 people.
Yeah, who eat cats. Yeah, he's not going to do that. So, you got to take what you can get.
Yeah, Rain. Come here and say hi to the audience. Don't worry. There you go. I don't know if you can hear that. I'll protect you from the Haitians. I don't know if you guys are gonna see the I don't know if you guys have seen, but on Twitter we've been having the Trump cat memes, which I gotta say I'm a big fan of the Trump cat memes. That is something that actually kind of reminds me of 2020, 2016, I should say. Let me see here. I think I shared a couple of them.
Argent, should I go and fetch Serp?
Yeah, go fetch Serp. So, okay. Yeah, so we got some cat memes. We got Trump riding a orange tabby cat. We have the make cats safe again. We have the Atlantic, which apparently is supposed to make Trump look bad, but it makes him look kind of awesome.
All right. Well, he'll come on when the actual debate starts. He's going to be eating with his wife.
Yeah, because he's a F slur.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Apparently in Congress. Oh yeah, that apparently the GOP posted Trump duck memes. This one I thought was the funniest one. The Trump running with the two cats.
Also, Donald Trump Jr. Posted didn't retweet but screenshotted a tweet by Nightmare Vision about the cats. So that's pretty cool.
So I've heard people say that the whole story was made up and this was just like some meme that started. This actually happened, right? Like this isn't
Oh no,
like right wing
I
fake
followed it
news.
up. You have people at like town hall meetings talking about this. Like there are videos of this. Matt Walsh included them in his stream of people like complaining about how there's just tons of homeless Haitians outside their houses who have just sort of destroyed the neighborhood and like leave trash and everywhere, and like elderly people are afraid to go outside, or they think that they have to leave the city. It's genuinely horrifying.
Because to be honest, I always do have to ask the question because there is so much right wing fake news. I
It's
am
really annoying.
like a lot of the time I do assume that if some I see someone post something and it sounds too good to be true, it is fake. I'm trying to remember. Let me see because there's someone who posted something the other day and I immediately called bullshit on it. Um. Oh, by the way, everybody. Rest in peace, James Earl Jones. Great actor. He lived a long life.
Yeah, he also died a Catholic.
Oh, he was a Catholic?
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
This is CNN.
Yeah, like here. Like this is actually fake as far as I can determine. Um You're racist, you ate birds too. Like I don't think that was actually a real article. There was no link posted there. And stuff like that. Actually, just before we get into that, I just want to look at this because this one was I thought really funny. Oh, they added the community notes. So Trump had posted "Happy Birthday, Mary." That was September 8th, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then this bitch said, "When you obviously know nothing about virgins, facepalm."
Yeah. Also, some Mexican said, actually, her name is Lupe. It's not Mary. That's not Mary. That's Lupe, which is a shortening of Guadalupe because they think Our Lady of Guadalupe is like a separate being, I guess, because they're that stupid.
Like a Aztec god or something.
Well, I mean, it's a common phenomenon historically that gods would have various local manifestations,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And historically, it was not uncommon for people to think that their Zeus was separate from another town's Zeus. And likewise, it was common historically for very, very plebby people to think that Our Lady of Notre Dame
No,
was
but this
separate.
person, I was shocked to find out has like 2 million followers.
Yeah, it's lots of stupid people around there.
So, I mean, is her contention that virgins don't have birthdays?
I think it was a brain fart. I think it was a severe.
I like how
fart.
contacts virgins have birthdays. I do like the chippy Marys. I might be blasphemous, but I think they're cute.
No, it's not. It's not blasphemous. It's just an adorable depiction of a very, very good person.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. But yeah, it was just I just thought that was funny. It was just sometimes you see them and you just go, let me see. How do I turn black mode back on? In honor, we were talking about Haitians, so I kind of feel like turning on black mode.
Did you just call it black mode instead of dark mode?
Blacked mode.
Oh god.
Okay, let's see what chat is saying. Is chat complaining that this is boomer, that this is garbage? Let's see here. Would be funny. Trump is far too much for people soup Haitians. I mean, they could get barbecue to come over.
Yeah. Incidentally, I recently learned that whole thing about there being a demonic ritual at the founding of Haiti was entirely true.
Oh, before I forget, Terellian, you want to show your channel? I'll post it in the because didn't you have a video that's going to come out soon?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a new video about the Holy Roman Empire, and in at the end of the week, I've done the research, and I've written about half of the script. It's already 4 pages, so I assume that means it's going to be a pretty long video.
Could you link me your channel again? I trouble finding it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I'll be retreading some old ground about the Imperial Knights, but there's a lot in the intervening years. A lot more stuff has been published on them, and so we're going to be making a much more thorough video.
Okay, so I will add his Twitter. Terillian has a great Twitter account. I look at it. Also, so you don't post that often, but you do largely, if I recall, medieval history stuff.
Medieval and early modern. Apologies to those few of you who are my fans, if any of you are in the audience. I just kind of dropped the ball in 2021 because I started my master's degree that year and I finished it in 2022, and I just never really started again. So yeah, I do history videos. I might just as a troll do math textbook reviews because that would be hilarious.
Okay, well that would be funny though. Okay, here we go.
Yeah,
I found your channel. Okay.
There we go.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, all right, just post that. Someone's asking, did you ever cover the 30 Years' War?
I've never actually done a video about the 30 Years' War, and if I were ever to do a video about the 30 Years' War, it would be a video series because it's a very, 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 very complex topic. I could never do one video about it.
I think I tried to cover it in one video. It's pretty it's rough. It's so long and there's so many phases and
it's so awesome. It's one of the most fascinating wars in history.
Yeah, people switch sides so many times during it. What is it with the 30 Years' War? Because last time we were covering the election, we started talking about the 30 Years' War. It ultimately, that's like Argent's Law. Eventually, Argent's Law is all discussions of Catholic theology among millennials will eventually lead back to Tolkien. And then I guess all streams eventually lead back to the 30 Years' War.
Yeah. Then, of course, there's Terillien's law, which is that never invoke a convoluted in-universe explanation when positing that the author just messed up is a better explanation and a simpler one.
Wasn't it, so, sorry, it wasn't the new video going to be called Sovereign Citizens?
Yeah, it's going to be called Sovereign Citizens of the Reich.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a biker game. Does it sound like a neo-Nazi biker game from like Montana or something?
Sovereign Citizens of the Reich, yeah. No, I would, dude, at this point, having a motorcycle gang is something to aspire to.
Is it the last implicit standoff identity?
I guess so. I mean, there's a guy on Twitter called Zuki Main.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if he's listening, That'd be cool. Follow him on Twitter, although some of the stuff he posts is kind of lewd because he's not really Christian. But anyway, he's a Korean guy, and he always talks about how the way to save the white race is for young white people to start motorcycle gangs.
Just while we're thinking about it, where's the what's sorry, I was looking at his Twitter earlier. Who is the Japanese guy again?
Aren Yumi.
Aranumi. I just want to share his R. How do you spell his name again?
So it's ARIN.
Yeah, there we go. I just wanted to recommend this. I don't know him personally, but I started following this guy on Terellian's advice. He's a Catholic Japanese guy, and he just provides a lot of like really good information about Japanese news. Like
Yeah.
he just breaks a lot of stuff down in a lot of detail,
Yeah.
which
It's
is
really
nice.
great.
Yeah, it's nice just because you don't see that much stuff out of Japan in English
Yeah.
language.
He also recently exposed a fake Japanese person called Colonel Otaku Gatekeeper as a
Mhm.
LARPer, which was pretty cool.
Right. Let's see here. Yeah. Okay, let me see here. Where is this located? I have not looked up where to watch the debate. Okay. Debate. Maybe we'll do. Let me see his speed C-SPAN. I'm seeing if there's like one of the less litigious ones just covering it.
Oh, I remember C-SPAN.
There we go. Okay,
I would like
C-SPAN.
her to be
I think that they're. I don't know if they're public. I feel like they're semi-public or something. Or there's not as many problems with them.
respect.
Okay, so let's just mute this for the moment. Okay, let me just make sure that's working. Yep. Okay, cool. So I'll just link this to, and then we can watch it together. Just because I'll probably pause. Some people don't pause when they do these, but yeah. Otherwise,
we might have to occasionally just to take in just how insane everything is.
yeah. Also, just I don't like talking over them that much. I find that can get kind of annoying. So.
Oh yeah. Did you send me the link?
Yeah.
You.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you did.
So I will put that up once we get a bit closer. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm just happy that I think there might be an election here soon. And then hopefully we'll get rid of Justo. I mean, Polyev is ultra cringe. I just don't want to have to listen to Justin anymore.
Yeah,
honest.
I'm probably gonna vote for Bernier. I live in a very, very hard liberal riding, and so I'm just gonna probably just vote my conscience, you know.
I actually don't know what my writing is like. Federally. Provincially, it's it's safe NDP. But... It's probably.
Is the most quote right wing part of Canada Saskatchewan?
I
or
think it
Alberta?
is Saskatchewan now. It's Saskatchewan or Alberta. I think Saskatchewan might be a little more.
Mhm.
At this point in time.
I think the only hope for Canada, honestly, is if Quebec separates, and then that leads to like a cascading effect of other provinces splitting off.
Yeah, I mean, we can hope. It's probably not going to happen,
And if Quebec does separate, I'm gonna jump ship to Quebec to live among my folk.
but yeah, it's That's going to be one of the most bizarre episodes in Canadian history. The whole uh separation referendum,
Mm-hmm.
and just how that. I think it was a case where both sides were trying to rig it, and just the feds did a slightly better job of rigging it um, than the BQ did.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see. Yeah, I think I'm in a safe liberal riding. Okay, so I'll probably just vote for Bernie then.
Yeah. It's
Oh,
just Poilievre is just really, really pro mass migration also. Like, and I think at this point he's probably more supportive of it than Justo. Because the liberals have sort of backpedaled a bit on the issue,
mm-hmm.
but I mean it's obvious that they just want to slow the boil. Like, we're not going to get remigration under the libs.
No, I mean we're not going to get lower migration. It's kind of like I'm trying to think. What's the equivalent? Is there an equivalent to immigration in the United States to what it's like in Canada? Like, what's an issue where there's Israel? Okay, Israel. It's similar to that. I think actually that's a good comparison. Immigration is to Canadian politicians what Israel is to American politicians of both sides of the aisle.
Where almost everyone is a fanatical supporter of it.
Yes, everyone in any position of power is a fanatical supporter of immigration. Later Gators asking, was Harper a good PM? You know what? I don't think he was that bad, especially considering what we wound up getting afterwards. As I've said, I have a bit of a soft spot for him just because when my grandfather died, he sent my grandmother a condolence card. I actually have that framed up on my wall. Um, but yeah, I think, and this is a term, and I noticed Fritz has started saying this too. He was a man who I think didn't have open contempt for the people that he ruled over, and I will give him credit for that. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, he was kind of just he was sort of a caretaker prime minister, which he was a caretaker prime minister in an era that demands much more than a caretaker,
Mm-hmm.
but where we tend to get much less than a caretaker, if you get my drift.
Mm-hmm.
You
Uh,
know, I mean, what we need is, remigration. But he's not the kind of he's not the great leader we need, but he was definitely much better than what we have right now.
oh yeah, no,
And
he was
and I think in any other era, someone of his temperament could have been a very solid leader.
like in the 1950s or something.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, but yeah, he was in power during the global financial crisis. Just I mention this periodically. Just people are asking about the card. My grandfather was very involved with the Conservative Party. He actually, I kind of like he kind of red pilled me when I was younger, and then I kind of became a leftist, and then I kind of went back. Um, he lived in Markham, and the experience of what has happened in Southern Ontario over the last, well, particularly the GTA over the last 20 years or something like that, has is just astounding.
It's
Like
gosh,
in Toronto, even in your lifetime.
I honestly miss when our biggest minority was
The Chinese,
Chinese people.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I used to complain about them. My dad used to complain about them to me when I was a little kid. And now, now I'm just so happy whenever I see a Chinese person running a corner store.
Oh, jeez. Like,
Yeah.
so for those of you who aren't aware, so Markham is a, I don't know if it's technically majority Chinese now, but it's like almost majority Chinese. It's basically just like one big, massive Chinatown. where a lot of the signs are in Mandarin now. But I will say this, like, I feel safe there. It's clean.
Mhm.
Um, like, I worked at a school there briefly. And I don't know, the parents, the kids were all well taken care of. They showed up, they dropped their kids off. It had some sort of order to it and structure. What it's like in a lot of other parts of the country is, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, the situation in Canada feels very apocalyptic, and I mean, I don't want to leave, but especially since other countries do seem like they might catch up. Well, at least other countries in the Anglosphere.
Well, also it's just home. Like I
Yeah.
think that's what people like sometimes don't get. They're like, why don't you just move to a red state? Other than the fact that most red states are just too hot. It's like it's just it's not home. Like
To be perfectly frank, I also just feel I don't have anything to offer America.
well, I mean, you could use the welfare as opposed to a cat eater from Haiti.
I would never do that to America.
Well, I mean, you could use it so the cat eater wouldn't use it.
Although, as one of my friends said, Terillian, you'd be another white body. We could always use that.
Yep, that's true. Here comes the GSP. I don't know what the GSP is. Stay in Cuckan, India. What's the opposite? We need a term for like an opposite of a locust. So, for those of you who aren't aware, a locust is someone who's from a left wing or blue state, um, who has destroyed their state and moves to a red state that has lower taxes and more freedom, and votes for the same policies there. So, like that happened to
Colorado
sorry,
is a very good example of this. Colorado is a very good example of this.
Virginia is also a very good sparrows. That's not a bad one.
I think Tennessee is starting to go down that direction. Yeah, I think Sparrow is.
Yeah, we'll go with sparrows. That's not bad. That makes sense. Unless you're a
Sparrow.
Maoist.
Yeah, no, Sparrow is great.
Okay, but like freedom at least in the perspective of like guns and stuff like that. And then they'll just
freedom is good. Freedom doesn't include killing your kid.
yeah, I think that is part of the saying the soft. I think that's part of the whole thing that maybe isn't often brought up. Part of passing pro-life legislation is to make locusts not want to move to your state.
Yes.
Um,
Oh no! Oh no! The libtards are gonna leave.
like so I think like what's happened in Texas is I think a lot of the conservatives from California are moving there and the liberals are mostly going to Colorado and the GOP in part passes legislation because the legislation it does to try to make it less attractive for locusts to move to. I think that's also what Florida's been doing. Let's see here. Do you have the stream open just because if you want to read the chat?
Oh, I don't have this stream open.
Okay, let me just send you that. Just
Canst thou link it?
okay, just because people are
Man.
making comments.
Yeah, I hope no one's being a jerk.
This is a no bully zone. Is that Gavin Newsom? Yeah, that's Gavin Newsom. The man with the presidential hair. I like how people kept saying, "Oh, are they gonna run him?" And I'm like, he's like, why would he want to run in this election? This election is a massive shit show.
Okay, let me see.
The other issue is they couldn't really skip over Kamala for like someone who's better. Because A, they didn't really have anyone who's better, and B, they can't make the like proud woman of color sit in the back of the bus.
Ah, Based Caulfield says, I just want to let Terillian know that I hate you. Okay. Cool.
It's rough, man. It's rough. Just trying to get it. I'm trying to steal a better thumbnail for this stream. Maybe I should take the one with like Biden and uh, Trump. I'll say this: I think Biden is a much more likable person.
Then Kamala.
Yeah.
You know, I feel dirty that I just pronounced it correctly.
Is it Kamala?
It's Kamala, yeah.
Okay.
I feel incredibly dirty now.
Mm-hmm. I haven't come up with a nickname for her yet. Kamala just seems too like obvious.
I'm sure that there are nicknames. Have you seen Freedom Tunes' version of Kamala? Yes, I have. Freedom Tunes is awesome. Oh, sweet. Slayer of Demons says, love your content, guys. Came from Serp.
Oh, thanks, man. Serp will be on later. Like I said, he's just being an F slur with his by eating dinner with his wife. Let's see here. Freedom Tune. I've never watched Freedom Tunes.
He's awesome. A friend of mine knows him IRL too.
Joe Kamala Harris. Joe Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Okay, that's kind of fun. But like I don't know, like Biden at least, like Biden never really made me angry. Like he was a complete and total tool, but I had fun watching him. Like he was kind of fun to watch. Are you guys streaming the debate with audio? Yes, I will put audio on. I just there's no point in putting audio on at the moment because the debate hasn't started yet. Let me look at Freedom Tunes. I haven't ever looked at Freedom Tunes.
No, he's awesome. Yeah, he's also Catholic. He's very based.
I like how Monsieur Z is just openly like political now.
Who is?
Monsieur C, I think his name. I think that's how you pronounce it.
No idea. You're gonna have to spell that one out.
Uh, he does a lot of like history videos. And he just started doing like just a whole bunch of like Trump ones. What's that? Every emperor on the political compass? Okay, I'll have to look at that. That sounds completely retarded. That reminds me, we have to do that stream. Maybe we'll do it when I come back from Germany. Where we go through, because we're going to do the stream where we're going to plot all the Game of Thrones male characters on the sociosexual hierarchy.
Yeah, we should do that.
But let me see here. What was I thinking of? I was thinking about that the other day. So would the Mountain be an alpha male?
Who would?
The Mountain.
The Mountain is it? Nah, he's a Sigma male.
Is he? Okay, I wasn't sure. He could even be like an evil Delta male. Something like that. I'm going to Germany. Yes, I am going. So, the story behind that is I got a call today, and it turns out that Air Canada is going to go on strike. right in the middle of when I was going to go to Germany. So I was going to go a week Saturday. I was going to go to Berlin, Dresden, Prague, and Budapest. And I don't know if that's still happening or not. So we'll see. If I do, expect a lot of cringy vacation vlogs. But no, I'm looking forward to it. It's just there's like no direct flights because I live in the middle of fucking nowhere now. So it adds like another 6 or 7 hours to go to Europe. When you went to Britain, was it a direct flight or did they have to stop at Pearson?
They had to stop at Pearson. Worst experience of my life.
Okay. Yeah, so that's not too bad though, but it's yeah, like I can't get a flight rescheduled just because I was like, oh, if I was getting a different flight, it would be like $5,000 because no one flies out of here.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. Going through Pearson Airport has made me terrified of airports.
Oh no, Pearson is awful. Oh,
Sorry if I'm late.
Hey,
oh no,
Serp.
sir, you're not late. We haven't started yet, so.
Oh, okay. Were you pre-gaming or?
Yeah, I did a bit at the beginning where I gave my electro map, and then said how I thought that the debate was gonna go, and then I brought Terillian on, and we've just been talking about a bunch of different stuff.
Oh, so do you? My opinion is that the debate's going to be like Trump wins, but it's not going to be a blowout.
So we're gonna watch this on SciTube if that's okay. I posted.
Yeah, I remember when I did the Democrat primaries debate, and I got shut down for that.
Well, we'll
Because
see
I
how it
streamed it
goes.
wholesale.
I have it in like a little corner. It should be okay. I'm doing it on C-SPAN, so we'll see how it goes.
And it's 48.
So I think this is a good way of doing it because that way we can I can pause it. Just because I
Yeah.
don't always like to talk over it. Based Serp is here. Atlanta has a nice airport. Putin has
Oh
endorsed
wow,
Kamala.
wow. That guy loves Serp, but he hates me for some reason.
I mean, honestly, so Serp, I kind of feel like Trump has a much higher floor than Kamala does, but a lower ceiling, in that Kamala hasn't been able to define herself in the context of what came before, and she just kind of fell out of a coconut tree. So if she just completely fucks this up, I think it could be really bad for her, because no one really has any idea who she even is.
Yeah, I generally think that with both Biden and Kamala, there's this sense that that they're kind of just all their power base is slowly from the Democratic Party.
Right. But like I think though the thing is that Trump has been hammered with literally every possible accusation, every possible slur that could be thrown at him. Whereas Kamala's had basically nothing because the media has just been shielding for her. So if she just completely humiliates herself on national TV, it's just I think it's going to be a lot worse. Sorry?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's just a guy in the chat who keeps insulting me.
Oh, he does that to me
Just
too.
ignore the chat, or either I don't know. I mean, it's up to Argent how he wants to respond.
Yeah.
I only it's very rare I block anybody. It has to be like they're posting porn or like
Just a
egg
sec.
bombs or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Not that I have a
guess,
problem
Faith
with-
Caulfield was probably just molested by a French man when he was a child.
Okay, whoa, dude. Okay.
Well, he started it.
Okay, well, just I don't know, just ignore him.
So if Kamala is only within 1% above Trump, if we look retrospectively to like Hillary and Biden, does that mean Trump wins the
yes.
popular vote?
Probably. I mean, if Trump is like tied, I mean, this is the problem when we have all the polls because there's also like the issue of response bias. Um, I think there's the problem of response bias. So I think Trump generally does better in the actuals than he does about this. Than he does in uh the polls.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a response bias where people that support Trump don't trust pollsters. I mean, I've been told personally by pollsters because I respond more than normal people do. I don't respond every time, but I told them I opposed immigration, and it resulted in her arguing with me and telling me I was a bad person for 15 minutes, and the
Mhm.
call ending.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that bad.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Okay, well that kind of
It's bad on both sides because I've done it the opposite side, and I've been yelled at for calling using the term because I was required to by the university I was at to use the term undocumented immigrant, and so I would get yelled at like multiple times for doing that. I mean, it is a very I mean, it's as bad as like the anti-fascist barricade to protect Berlin or whatever it is in terms of like regime.
It's not as bad as
like,
partner though.
totalitarian terms. What were you saying?
It's not as bad as partner though.
Oh, what's Parker?
Partner. When someone
partner.
their boyfriend is a partner.
Oh yeah, that's bad. That's funny.
So the whole point is to make it so that you're wary of being homophobic around random people.
Okay, so the debate's gonna start. So can you guys? Okay. So people in the chat, let me know. Can you hear the balance? Okay, it should be about me, the guests, and this should be about the same level. Probably the debate a little quieter. I'm gonna try not to talk too much while the actual thing's going. And we can.
It's her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the.
If either of you guys want me to pause it, just let me know.
Someone wants me to say something in French. Terellian say wine moms vote Kamala in French.
And that brings us
Les
to the
mères
rules of
de
tonight's
vin
debate.
votent
90
pour
minutes with
Kamala.
2 commercial breaks, no topics or questions
I'm
shared
drinking
with the
wine, by the
campaigns.
way.
That's based. So you're a wine dad.
Yep.
I'm drinking Coke Zero. What does that
Coke
count
Zero.
as? Okay, I'll be back in 1 second. I'm just gonna run that back.
I think they met in real life, haven't they? It's kind of weird.
Who's met in real life?
I'm sure that they met if she served as vice president, running against him.
Oh, sorry. Okay, my bad.
Imagine and have actually
okay.
a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time.
Trump
so
looks
that
low
those
energy.
young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion. One of them is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to startup small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually
Is she
result
just making
for
stuff up?
middle-class families in about
Okay, do you know what the Trump sales tax is? Is she talking
No.
about how his tariff policy will raise the price on goods? Is that what she's referring
I'm
to?
guessing so. This is very
$4,000
odd.
more a year because of his policies and his ideas.
She's saying that she
about
supports
what should
tax
be
cuts,
the
and that's how she's
backs
coming out of the
middle-class
gate.
people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous.
What's with
because
his
many things
eye?
are 50, 60, 70, and 80%
I don't
higher
know.
than they were just a few years ago.
He
This
got
has been
cursed
a
by
disaster for people, for the
RFK
middle
Jr.
class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora
There we go.
in Colorado.
Oh, my
They are
Lord.
taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden
Based.
led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but
Okay,
I would
there
like
we
to
go.
let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health
You mean COVID did that?
epidemic in a
Yes.
century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
What does that have to do with the economy?
And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight
Well, you made up the
is
sales
a
tax.
detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again.
I hope that's
I
true.
believe
You
very
disavowed
strongly
it.
that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president.
Lady,
for
she
all
had a
Americans.
Kennedy
President Trump will give you a
endorsement.
minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. we had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy.
I
and where
always
the
hate
stock
like
market
the
was higher than
smug
it was before
smile the
pandemic
other
came in.
person does
Nobody's ever seen
when the
anything
one
like
person's
it.
talking.
We made ventilators for the entire
I
world.
think that
We got
muting the
gowns,
mics
we got
is
masks. We did things that nobody
helpful,
thought
but it makes it
possible.
more boring.
And people give me credit for
Yeah.
rebuilding the military.
No,
They
but they
give me
do this in
credit for a
every
lot of
debate.
things,
I just find it
but not
really
enough credit for the great job
cringe.
we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back, and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that.
Okay, I'm just gonna. I know people don't want me to pause, but to be fair, and I've said this about Justo, I said this about Biden. You kind of have to take a mulligan about the entire COVID thing because it was a catastrophe, the likes of which we've very rarely seen. So I do think everyone needs a bit of a pass.
Created them. They know it,
Yeah.
and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the
Goldman
economy.
Sachs.
What the Wharton School has said is Donald
I don't
Trump's
know.
plan
It seems that
would actually explode the
that
deficit.
Argentina's doing
16
well
Nobel
after
laureates have described
while
his
of
economic
insane
plan as
policies
something
that are
would
supported by
increase
professional
inflation, and by the middle
economics.
of next year
That once we
would
get an
invite a
outsider, it
recession.
seems to work some
You
miracles.
just have to look at where
So the guys who caused the financial crisis were supposed to be like, oh, they support Kamala's economic policy, so that's a good idea.
we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
Says the person who cited Goldman Sachs.
I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like four
Yeah, she did.
sentences. Like
Yeah.
run, spot, run. 4 sentences that it's just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods
unbelievably
coming
based.
into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris.
I think that the affordability inflation thing is actually a good point to hammer because that is something I think people do actually care about and something they have noticed in the last 4 years. I know I've certainly noticed it here. Have you noticed that, Serp?
Well, I went to the grocery store today to Safeway to buy chicken strips and macaroni, and I noticed the incredible increase on my tendies. I know where the autistic vote is going after this. I mean, it would have been, it doubled.
I mean, there's definitely inflation because of Trump bucks and COVID, but it's bad here too in
Ask for your
Canada.
response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American
She's supposed to be a
chips
socialist,
China
but she believes
to
in
help
neoliberal.
them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out.
I'm putting it up to 1.1 speed just so we can get caught up.
Wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details
She looks
of what
like she's-
that requires.
she sounds like she's
Focusing on
holding back
relationships with our
tears.
allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce.
I always hate it, and Trump does this too. I either like AI, quantum compute, like just throwing these fucking buzzwords out there.
So that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked
Can you believe
President
in free
Xi for what he
trade,
did
like
during
extremist on a free trade, but be pro-unions?
So, sorry, did she just say that tariffs are bad for workers?
Yes, she's an extremist on free trade, but
Okay.
is saying that
COVID.
she
Look at
does
his
so to
tweet.
support
Thank
unions.
you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist.
Oh,
She's a
the
Marxist
cringe.
professor in economics, and he taught her well.
cringe.
But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at
Is there anything cringier than the Marxist communist thing?
I think it's totally fine.
It's
Call them
much better than calling him a Nazi.
Okay, I think it's
these
cringe,
millions
though.
and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21
They're
million
gay
people, not
race
the 15
communists.
that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of
It's like
West Virginia,
skipping
the
a lot,
previous governor
Argent.
of West Virginia, not the
Oh,
current governor, who's
okay.
doing
Well, there's not much I can do about that.
an excellent job.
Okay.
But the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do
I
with
think
the
you
baby.
should
In other
just
words,
not
we'll
pause
execute the
it.
baby.
Okay.
And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
Yes,
Madam
it
Vice
is.
President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a
Fact
bunch of
check
lies,
needed.
and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand
No,
how we
but
got here. Donald
it
Trump
is.
Hand
It's like
selected
objectively
3 members
true.
of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal
Trump
for a
abortion
doctor or
bans.
nurse
Trump
to provide
implemented them?
healthcare. In one state, it
Based?
provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what
The
happens
right to kill their
body
own,
next. That
to
is
kill a
immoral.
child that is innocent.
And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply
That is
held
immoral
beliefs
to
agree.
believe
the government
that
and
the father
Donald
of the
Trump certainly should not be telling
perpetrator of a
woman what to
crime
do
inherits
with her body.
that
I have talked with women
the child
around
inherits
our
it, so
country.
the child
You
needs to
wanna
be
talk about
executed
this
for the
Exactly.
father's
people
crime.
wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because they have
And Trump was the guy who did that.
Go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't
No,
want
but
that.
but it is legal
A 12 or
too.
13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a
Is it
pregnancy
jumping
to
on
term?
you?
No.
They don't want that.
Okay.
And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms,
The literal
in particular the freedom to
author
make
of the
decisions
Patriot
about
Act
one's own
endorsed
body
you, lady.
should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well,
to
I
your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it.
I'm going to say this. I think Trump is actually a lot more coherent than he normally is tonight. I think he actually did a
Yeah,
lot
that's
of
why
good
they
prep.
chose to mute the mics.
Yeah, he's acting very coherent. Also, I don't know. I actually kind of agree with Trump on this. I think the states is probably as good as we're
I
gonna
think-
get it.
Well, that's not what I was supporting. That's not what the mainline pro-life movement was supporting. It's shifted, and I'm the cuck that I think it's overreach to force it on California. To force
Well, I don't
a
think it
ban
is.
on abortion in California.
I just think if you make it a federal issue, the country will vote to have it will vote to have Roe v. Wade back.
I think
But they
that
were saying it's the same
some states, maybe it should be first trimester. Some states it should be banned. Less abortions is better, period.
Yeah.
way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me. But I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd
Sad.
never be able to get it. Just like she couldn't get student loans, they couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned,
There is no
nowhere in
protections.
America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country?
What does that-
Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs.
Objectively, not
Barely can
feeding your
afford to
kid
do it,
isn't
and what
as
you
bad
are
as
putting
killing
her
her.
through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right
He's
to
going
make
to her
decisions about
fake
her own
black
body.
accent.
And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President
Excuse
Harris.
me.
So,
Response.
so the argument is because people in every state voted for abortion being legal, we need to make abortion legal at a federal level. I guess.
Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her
Why-
that
why
question?
don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question, would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question,
you
would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's
Okay, that is a sweep. That is 100% a sweep.
This is just platitudes from
I mean,
Harris.
but it's objectively so. So her claim is that under Roe v. Wade prevented late-term abortions. That's what she said, right? Like I didn't hallucinate that.
important to
What did
Republicans,
she say?
Democrats.
That Roe v. Wade prevented late-term abortions.
Yes, both her and Biden said that.
Voters across
During Biden's debate, he said that Roe v. Wade was first trimester only or something, and he was more pro-life than Trump.
Kamala is claiming that you can get punished for a miscarriage because of abortion bans, which is
in this
again
country.
a complete lie.
Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the...
And you know what? Sorry, the fucking cunts in the media are not gonna, they're gonna fact check this and go, actually under Roe v. Wade, no, you couldn't do that because, I don't know, they'll make some shit up. And they're gonna justify fucking killing babies who are viable outside of the womb because that's what kind of satanic pricks they are.
Administration
Well,
waited
just
until 6
remember
months
this,
before the
Argent.
election to act.
When
And
they
would
go
you
to
have done
hell, the
anything
demons will
differently
be
from
telling
President
them,
Biden on this?
fact check,
So I'm the only
you're
person
here
on the
forever.
stage
Yeah.
who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns.
I mean, just say you're in favor of like if you believe that human life begins at birth, just be fucking consistent about it. Say yes until it's born. I think you can kill it. It's not a person.
Drugs and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported.
Yeah, it sucked.
And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the
It
border
was
to help
shit.
those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their...
I'm not gonna lie. I the term fact check actually triggers me. Like I actually,
It's very totalitarian. It is, like I said, it's like the anti-fascist barricade tier of lying.
no, like it actually physically makes me cringe, in a way that most words don't.
their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because
This is a fucking conspiracy theory that Trump is this puppet master.
he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not...
Kamala, they
That's literally what happens at your rallies. You
will
have
not hear him
fucking
talk about your
concerts and then
needs, your
come on
dreams,
and everybody
your
walks
and your
out.
desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have
Okay,
done to our country
let's
by
try
allowing
to
these
stay
millions
focused.
and millions of people
By the way,
to come
Argent,
into
you
our
got a
country,
super chat.
and look at what's
Yeah.
happening to the towns all over
I'll
the
read in a
United
second.
States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came
Yes!
out. They're eating the cats.
Oh my God! Praise be
They're
the Lord
eating
Jesus
the
Christ.
pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify.
Base, that's what I believe.
Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have
He's
been no
literally
credible reports
me.
of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals
Lol,
within the immigrant
sure.
community.
Well,
All
I've
this-
seen people on
There's
television
literally
say-
pictures.
The people on television say
clar-
my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying the
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme. You know, this
Oh,
is
she
actually one of
cackled.
the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formally worked with President Bush.
Oh, Dick
Mitt
Cheney
Romney,
endorsed
and
you?
John
Cool.
McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And
You're
if
going
you
to
want
start
really
World War
know
III?
The inside
So Dick Cheney, the dude behind the fucking Patriot Act, is the Patriot Act the single, other than maybe the immigration reform bill, is it the worst piece of legislation ever passed in American history?
I don't know. That's
It's up there. It's top 5. isn't
yeah.
it? It's top 5. The guy who they made an entire fucking movie that we watched, sir, and Terillian.
I
We
watched
that
it
movie.
again recently. This weekend.
Was it not like
Actually.
the biggest hatchet job you've ever seen?
I mean, it's the level of hate. If you could take that, like the level of just like pompous hate, like it's like pompous hate. If you could harness that energy, we wouldn't need fusion power. Like
And it won
you
multiple
could harness the
awards.
cope on that. Oh, it was a Hollywood darling.
And now Cheney, like,
track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States.
yeah, but the generals
His former
suck.
national security advisor has said he is dangerous.
They
and
literally disobeyed
His
him and
former
broke the
Secretary of
Constitution.
Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed,
Their pets
I think
getting
the
eaten
choice
doesn't
is clear
affect
in this
them.
election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they. But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S.
With local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would
Base.
use local police. How would you deport
Pivot
11
of
million
history.
undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah. It is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever...
I gotta be honest, I actually think that Trump's doing pretty good. I think
He's doing better than I
Even if
expected.
Trump fails, what he's saying is moving the Overton window, which is good for us. The discussion of Springfield, Ohio is a victory in and of itself for our cause.
I think he's sounding a lot more coherent than he often does.
never come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow.
Invade the world
I
and
think
port
they
the
probably
world.
did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done.
Oh,
There's
boy.
never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this
This
country
is-
is through the roof. And we
Praise
have a
be
new
the Lord
form of
Jesus
crime.
Christ.
It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris, I'll
FBI
give you
they were defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue
We
of what is
support
important about
totalitarianism.
respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page.
Turning
on the
America into
same old
Venezuela,
tired
baby.
rhetoric, and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries.
Have
But
they
frankly,
fact-checked
the American
Kamala
people are
once?
exhausted.
No, they
Same
don't do
old
that.
playbook.
Vice President
She's
Harris,
right
thank you.
ipso
Excuse me.
facto.
Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those
He's turning it
cases
into
was involved
Venezuela.
with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election.
President
They're
Trump,
fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone
Well, I'm sure they're gonna fact check her
Unbelievably
on.
based.
I'm sure they're gonna fact check her on Trump saying that that he wanted to terminate the Constitution.
who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military.
Oh,
Understand,
it's so fucking. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to drop the G. It's so fucking gay. They keep bringing up the fucking military thing. Like, move on. Come up with some
Well,
other.
so what's happening? I think that there's some truth to this. So what's happening is that during Obama's second term, with the sacking of generals and the very crushing woke propaganda that soldiers are confronted with, and the resulting crisis enlisting soldiers, that they're advocating towards these woke tail soldiers. They're not advocating for the teeth; they're advocating for the tail against Trump.
Oh, I'm sure that we're about to see a fact checking of
Trump wants to abolish the Constitution.
Yeah.
and what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails. Because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We
Note that she didn't actually address the weaponization of the Justice Department.
know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice
to
President
stop
Harris.
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president,
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that
to get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking.
Just sweeping it.
Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many
It's so well, at least they're calling her on it, but it's such a softball.
of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States, and in fact, I was the tie-breaking
How would she ban fracking as vice president?
vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign
Diversity
oil.
and include
We have
DEI
had
energy.
the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who
No, you didn't.
worked and saved and was able to buy our
She
first
was raised
home when
by
I was a
two
teenager.
highly paid
The values I
PhDs.
bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy.
Oh, fuck you. You didn't grow up poor. Like, you grew up in an upper middle class background. I don't begrudge you that, but don't pretend like you're not like that you're from the fucking gutter.
6 times is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million
This is
homes
so
by the end of my
incoherent.
first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime.
What the fuck? Just throw that out there. Yeah, my friend, it was sexually. It's just such an odd sequitur.
Is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My
Feel like her
values
speeches
have
are
not
written by
changed.
ChatGPT.
And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings
She
values
can barely get
and
it
a
out there.
perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down. And name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
Attitudes.
President Trump, your
Well, first of all, I
response?
wasn't
Not
given
policies.
$400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out. She went
Down
out
for what?
in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that
Lord
nobody would
Jesus
ever
Christ,
think of.
thank you.
Now she wants to do
Trump literally brought up the entire, like, excuse me, I'm speaking.
transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, They got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out of it. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that
for
we
the
have to get to.
environment, as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask you.
You might ask her that question.
You were
This
the
is so
president. You were
based.
watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Trump's being like way more based than I thought he was gonna be.
And
This
mayor
is the
came
most
back
based
writing,
speech
as
he's
you know.
ever made, or
I
the
said,
most
you
based
know,
debate
this
he's
is
ever
gonna be a
had.
very big
Him bringing up the chess is awesome.
rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was
He
done
said
by
that
others.
the
I said,
immigration
I'd like to
destroyed the
give you
fabric of our
10,000 National
nation.
Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law
The
enforcement
most
officers were
unholy
injured.
satanic
And
place
some
on
died.
earth.
I thought the Capitol was built by slave labor.
And
The most
understand
unholy
that
satanic place on
former
earth.
president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys,
There are
a
fine
militia,
people on one side.
the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back.
Well, you're
It's time to
bringing
turn
up
the
shit that
page.
doesn't matter.
And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you.
Look, Kamala, baby, it's 2024. You're still talking about Charlottesville. It's time to move on.
To stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law.
Did Charlottesville declare independence from the U.S. and set up an anarchist commune that was run by a rapper warlord? I'm pretty sure that didn't happen.
And to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back.
Well, I think they're going to fact check her that he didn't actually say that.
Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Right. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus.
Sweeping it up.
In these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically. You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them Republican.
No judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread
standing.
fraud.
That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The President of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say
Please
that
speak
he
of
lost
Lord
by a whisker,
Jesus
so he
Christ.
still believes he did not lose.
I'm not gonna lie. If I had a MAGA hat, I'd been putting it back on. Like, people are saying that Trump's worse this time? I mean...
I don't know. My Twitter feed is saying that this is, like, the best he's ever
The
done.
election that was won by President Biden
I'm going
and
to
yourself.
head back to
But I do want to ask you about something
my
that's come up
group
in the last
for
couple of
the
days. This was a
night,
post
but it
from
was great
President
being on.
Trump.
Okay, thanks,
about
man.
the election.
Definitely go check out his channel, guys. I put it in the description. There'll be the sovereign citizens of the Imperial Reich coming in soon.
just
Yeah,
weeks away. He
thank
said,
you so
when I
much.
win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials.
Ted Cruz
he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent
jumped
of the law,
on the
which will include
bandwagon
long-term
against
prison
Haitians.
sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military...
Okay, that is objectively not true. Have you seen any of the... I've covered how Blinken gets treated when he goes to any country.
So Putin just endorsed Kamala Harris because he considers her a laughingstock.
Yeah, that's
He
why.
said that on live Russian television.
Well, he said that about Biden, too. Like, he said Biden's retarded. I'd rather deal with him.
Leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way...
Have you guys, like... I've done this, covered this many times. When Blinken goes to a country, they fucking hate him. Like, I've never seen...
They have the, like... What was it? Like the deputy mayor?
The deputy governor of Ankara province? Or, like, the, like... Foreign Affairs Secretary of Shanghai. When Blinken left China, they didn't send anyone to the airport. Literally, he just got on the plane by himself. Like, Serp, in your lifetime, have you ever seen America as disrespected? Like, not hated, but just, like, treated as a joke of a country?
I think this is worse than, like, W. Bush.
No, but people were afraid of America then. They thought it was like the great Satan, and now it's just the great pause.
In a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election. It leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
Lady, you shield for fucking Biden. He talks to dead people.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look.
Well, Trump, he did actually end the Nord Stream pipeline, too.
He did end it. He told Ukraine to blow it up. And attack NATO.
Most feared person
he told Ukraine to attack NATO.
Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes.
So base, just blowing him out.
They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when
he's bringing up the coup, he's bringing up...
She was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot more to get.
Okay, how awesome is it that he shouted out Viktor Orban?
I don't know if he's winning in terms of the American public, but in terms of his base and in terms of us, amen. Like, amen. This is so good.
Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months
Ooh.
ago. Now an estimated
Trump's in
40,000
trouble.
Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis.
12
Many of them
million.
young people who were simply attending a concert.
12 gazillion.
Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel
Oh, you
has the
just
right to
pissed
defend
on your
itself. We
entire
will.
base, didn't you?
And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran, and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel.
Okay, Trump is probably going to undo all the good he's done so far.
But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up. Far worse than people understand.
Wait, what? Okay,
What?
that's a
that
boomer moment.
Russia would have been invaded.
No, he said
I
Russia
think that-
killed millions of people.
Oh, I mean that's obviously not true.
Going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel.
He's
She
been
wouldn't
doing
even
Bronze
meet
Age. I don't know if you know this.
Netanyahu
He's been
when he
doing
went to
Bronze
Congress
Age
to make a
over
very
inflation
important
of
speech.
numbers.
She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation. And now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these
Why are you
dictators
saying that
and
Trump is
autocrats are
based?
rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favor.
So the argument is that because Trump gets along with other world leaders, that means he's bad. Whereas because
Yes.
Biden can't get along with literally anybody, that means he's a good leader.
Yes,
And that is why.
because we're right.
So many
you're wrong.
military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have.
Once again, I mean, this is the same military establishment who did Iraq, who did Syria, who did Libya, who did Afghanistan, who ran the war in Ukraine, who made the big cinematic counteroffensive. I mean,
You know,
this is
you need to broadcast to your enemies exactly what you're doing before you do it. That
Yeah.
will result in successful military operations.
It's true.
have to have a
100%.
president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with
Well, it's good to see they gave Trump equal time.
much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Can you skip ahead a little
Yep,
bit
I will.
past the commercials?
U.S. pulled out of the union. Just tell your smart speaker.
The position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly,
Based.
people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to...
Honestly, I think it helps Trump that they kind of skipped through the Israeli thing so quick. Because they didn't really give him a chance to fuck up. I think Kamala, though, is in trouble.
to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's... Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here...
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as
Ukraine
commander-in-chief,
can't
if elected,
win.
how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any
We're
different
asking
from what we're
about
seeing from
if an
President Biden?
independent Ukraine exists or
First
not,
of
and
all,
how many
it's
Ukrainian
important to
people
remind the
will
former
remain
president, You're not
alive.
running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually
We
met with
are
Zelensky
about
a few days
spilling
before
our
Russia invaded,
burning money
tried
in foreign
through
wars
force
that
to
don't
change
benefit our
territorial
country.
boundaries,
That's
what
to define
America's
one of the
about.
most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself.
The lines
Days later,
never
I went to NATO's
change.
eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition,
Our support
the
for
artillery,
the borders that
javelins,
Khrushchev
the Abrams tanks
created
that
for
we have provided,
Ukraine.
Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president,
They're winning,
Putin would be
guys.
sitting in Kyiv right now.
They're winning.
And
They're
understand what
definitely
that would
winning.
mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that
So the narrative is that Russia is incompetent country run by corrupt retards, but they're going to somehow overrun all of Europe. That's the narrative,
Yeah.
right?
The narrative is that Russia is that the Vladivostok is under siege, but also Russia will conquer France, or Russia is about to march on Lisbon.
we
Lisbon.
understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which
So basically, it's a massive base trade.
Yeah, basically, the narrative is at the same time Ukraine is besieging Vladivostok, but if we don't support Ukraine, then Russia will be besieging Lisbon the next day.
and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe,
Stop
starting
saying
with
Kyiv.
Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and now, please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But
What
let me
a
tell you something.
king.
She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader, upholding international rules.
Serp, was it just me or did she not deny having met Putin?
Well, I mean, to be fair, Trump did not. He sidestepped all of January 6th.
Okay.
And
So
norms.
she's gonna
As a
sidestep
leader
that, I
who
guess.
shows strength, understanding that
But
the
you're
alliances
right.
we have around the world are dependent
You know what would be based? John Mearsheimer as Secretary of State.
on our ability
Oh,
to look out
amen,
for our
amen.
friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy.
Democracy.
And that is very much what is at stake here.
Democracy.
The President of the United States is
We must
commander-in-chief,
spread gay marriage
and
across the
American people
world.
have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen, for years we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden.
Sorry, I'm just going to stop this. So Daniel Davis, who is a political commentator, he served in Afghanistan at the time. So he said that Trump had ordered them to withdraw from Afghanistan multiple times, and that basically the general staff, he said that they convinced him. I feel like they threatened him into not withdrawing. Eventually what wound up happening is he ordered the last time he started the withdrawal, they deliberately didn't start doing any of the drawdown until like a month before, and that's what caused it. So it's, yeah.
Did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century.
Except for Ukraine. What about, but aren't they at war with the Houthis? Aren't they like protecting the Yemen? Isn't there U.S. soldiers in Syria and Iraq?
There's a tiny U.S. contingent in Syria that's sitting there to be attacked to expand American power reflexively.
What about the soldiers in Ukraine?
Is there training soldiers in Ukraine?
Yes.
Okay.
But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down.
Well, that's security
He
advisors an
bypassed
excellent.
the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the
That's
Taliban
the
to
opponent.
Camp David. A
Here's
place
you.
of
Good thing
storied
that you've been
significance for us
supported
as
by
Americans, a place where
Cheney
we
with.
honor the importance of American
This is
diplomacy,
just fucking
where we
straight up
invite and
Dick
receive
Cheney speaking now.
respected.
So how would they so to my understanding, Trump said, look, we're going to he made a deal with the Taliban that if you stop, we have like a ceasefire and let us pull out, then we'll just be gone and don't try to interrupt our leaving the country. And the Taliban said yes. And America was able to pull out without the Taliban attacking them. I mean, that seems successful. Like, what else are they supposed to do?
World leaders. And
I mean, they're supposed to just have a zero-sum game, obviously, where America just starts killing Pashtuns, like civilians just en masse to defeat the Taliban. Obviously, that's what Kamala would have done if Biden wasn't president and she was.
Commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back
When you
to
talk to your
the point
enemies,
of how
they
he
win.
has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our
Yeah, Constantine makes a good
Enemy
point.
combatants.
Constantine makes a good point. Why did Biden
Unlawful
follow
combatants.
the withdrawal agreement then, if it was so bad?
military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to
Why is she
uphold
turning
the
into
strength
such a
and the
horrific
respect
neocon
of the United States of America around the world?
Vice
that
President Harris,
doesn't
thank you.
believe
President
in
Trump, your
like
response
prisoners
for
of
saying
war
we're
and the
handing
Geneva
leadership to
thank
the
you.
Accords?
Taliban?
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent
It is.
she
Objectively,
and her boss are.
we lost in Afghanistan
I wanna
and
move
Russia
on now
saw
to
our
recent
weakness.
politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black.
Well, I mean, at some point this out, I mean, Russia had to leave Afghanistan. I don't think Russia necessarily, like, would hold that against them. It's that it was done in such just a retarded, like, pathetic fashion.
Back until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as
Oh,
black.
no.
I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the
That's a pretty hard claim.
of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
Platitudes, not
this is now your
policies.
third time.
This is the most divisive presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago.
But I thought the American justice system was perfect. I mean, Trump was found guilty, so obviously they were guilty too.
Because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes
You're
in
60
what is
years
possible.
old.
One who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans. And
What is your plan?
And let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers.
That's
That's
fucking
the kind of
nothing.
conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is
Yeah, but have they been asked about that? No.
constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump,
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay. Thank
That's
you,
what her
Mr.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsey,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump,
president has said
no, I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry.
I
We're
just
going
need
to move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this is
multiple
now
times.
your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But What we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point.
Here, I'll
that
be
the
back in
former
a
president
second.
has
Yep.
made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous
Kamala
lying about
owns
this stuff.
guns.
As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't.
And that's just how much John McCain sucked. His last action on this planet Earth was to save Obamacare. It's just his entire life is being a fucking snake.
No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the
John McCain is arguably the single most dangerous person to ever run for president. If he had beat Obama, he would have fucking started a nuclear war.
Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate.
So somebody was asking me earlier to call out the Republicans. The Republicans have no health care plan. They never have. It's their single biggest problem, and it is a sore at the bottom of their campaign. And they need to come up with something. Like, it doesn't even really matter what it is, but they have no plan. And that's the reason a lot of people vote Democrat is solely on the purpose of healthcare, because the Republicans have no healthcare plan. Like, it's, what if you're somebody who's like socially conservative, who's generally speaking economically liberal in Canada, but economically like free market, and a member of your family has some sort of physical illness, and they have a choice between the people with no plan and the people who are maybe going to offer you something that may eclipse literally everything else.
Drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did.
I'm pretty sure that they did.
And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice
No, but like Biden literally repealed that on the first day.
president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice
pass this
President
prologue
Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald
So,
Trump stands on that.
I was gone for a minute or so. So she's throwing Obama's legacy under the bus.
No, she says great. She said that the great John McCain, his dying act was to save Obamacare, and how Trump disparaged him and was mean to him and said he didn't like him when he was like a true American.
John McCain is like the most horrific and terrible presidential candidate.
I said he was the single most dangerous man to ever run for president.
He killed numerous prisoners of war in Vietnam.
But it wasn't only him.
He's
It
a
was
traitor.
all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare. Much less money. But she
Actually, Serp, you're a good example of what I was talking about. Do you think there's a lot of people who maybe have opinions similar to ours, but vote Democrat because of healthcare?
I mean, that's my mother.
And yeah, and that's the primary reason the Republicans have no healthcare.
I answered when my union asked me what do I care most about if Tim Sheehy wins what is the most upsetting part to me? I said healthcare. Tim Sheehy is the Republican running against John Tester, the most important Senate race in the entire
Montana's
nation.
a swing
Montana.
state.
Private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to give.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years.
I thought we didn't care about climate change anymore because we need international free trade and unlimited
Yeah, we need
immigration from the third
international
world.
free trade, limitless immigration of
People from lower carbon per capita.
cat-eating monsters and so on.
Years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy.
I forget, Serp, do you believe in man-made climate change?
Yes. So my position is that man-made climate change is real, but it's exaggerated, and that the real threat is due to man-made climate change is pushed by corporations to undermine the real threats to the environment, such as the declining biodiversity, invasive species, microplastics, deforestation, and so on.
Also, just how bad the oceans are with all the stuff in them.
Yeah. I think that it's they're jumping on top of it, saying they're going to defeat it to cover up all the really bad environmental devastation that's happening.
Yeah, I agree.
While we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know.
Sir, did you see the clip where they had him on and he said, we're going to endorse the Democrats, but most of our members are voting for Trump?
So based.
Like, he said that. It's like, why are you voting for the endorse the Democrats? It's like, because it's just what we do.
That part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening
But you
up
don't
auto
support
plants,
American
closing them like happened
automobiles
under
because
Donald Trump.
you're extreme free trade advocate.
Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. They're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million?
Oh, he's calling it out.
This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News president
Cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans. and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world. And from
So, what you think?
Is it done now?
Yep.
It's all the way done?
Yep.
So in terms of our people, in terms of my political views, the discussion of Ohio was a foundational and absolute victory. Trump's rhetoric, pushing the Overton window rightward,
He did it on a lot of issues.
manna from heaven. In terms of Trump being able to sidestep difficult issues for his re-election campaign, including January 6th, I think he did a very good job. But the problem with this kind of debate, right, is that is it better for somebody to sidestep divisive issues to appear better in the debate, or is it better for somebody to directly confront them? I think that he did very well at sidestepping the issues. It was very obvious throughout the entirety of the debate that Trump was able to take control of the narrative, even if the hosts ganged up against him on the side of Harris. It was very clear that he was the driver of the debate, and very clear that everyone was watching the debate for him, and that Harris was on the back foot the entire debate. I don't know if I said this on your stream, but my prediction was that Trump would win this, but it wouldn't be a landslide like with Biden. And I think that that's what happened. I think that Trump has been able to put forward and control the debate the entire time. I don't think that it was a complete landslide where the Democrats will be going, or people supporting Harris will be embarrassed and humiliated. But I think that Trump took control of the narrative almost the entire debate.
Yeah, I think that I think he did a good job, because the image is always that he's like this crazy, unhinged, buffoonish, but he was very well spoken. He was very focused. I found him very intense, very good at like just getting his point across, and stuff like that. I think overall he did a lot better. Trump is kind of a wild card when it comes to debates. Sometimes his debates are bad, sometimes they're really good. Um, I think Trump just kind of mocked her. Like he just said, "I'm the alpha
He
male
just
here.
took
Move aside,
control of the
bitch."
entire debate the whole time.
Yeah,
I feel that he had control of it over the entirety of the debate.
but it was controlled in a very confident way. It wasn't controlled in like a bitchy, "I'm gonna just talk over you" way. I think he had a couple points he was trying to get across, and he got them across. Now, I'll say this: Kamala did better than uh, I thought she was going to do. I'm not sure what you think, but I feel like either she was kind of incoherent, there wasn't anything like that retarded. Um, Vincent Farrell tweets, super chats. "I'm a simple man. I hear Serp going to be on a stream, and I watch it. He's like your number one fan." Um, uh, so yep. Thank you for that, and I'm sure Serp appreciates it. But yeah, I think that she did better. Somebody points out in the chat, Trump had nothing on healthcare, absolutely nothing. Horrible answer. I mean, I personally kind of respect that he said he didn't have something, but I get why that's bad electorally.
I just think that like there's different ways to view this. So a guy that said he's not going to make videos anymore basically said Trump won the debate, but he's not going to. It's just he won the debate with his base. He's not going to put anybody else on his side with it, and that was elect right. I think that kind of defines that. I think that he won it in terms of wheeling it back towards what he was saying. I think that the problem is that I don't know if this is a problem necessarily, but he didn't really speak to the middle that much. I feel like he was speaking to the base the whole time.
Although that's what people have been complaining about.
The wheeling to the middle or speaking to the base?
Wheeling to the middle. That he has.
He did not wheel to the middle at all, I don't think.
No, but everyone was saying like he's moderated. I think he actually handled the abortion question about as well as he can. I think the state one is probably like it's a no-win solution question, particularly if you're pro-life. Just saying it's off to the states. I think that's the best we can hope for. I think that's acceptable. I think that is like. I think bringing up late-term abortion is also pretty good. Is there going to be another 2 debates, or is there just one more?
I don't know. I thought that Harris only wants to fulfill the obligations that the Biden campaign agreed to and only have a single debate with Trump. I think that the planning of Harris's team is to try and hide her as much as possible and prevent her from having gaffes and trying to keep her as an unknown as much as possible against Trump.
I think Trump did a good job getting the inflation thing out there.
I think that when it came to terms of like the economy, Trump won. When it came to immigration, Trump won. When it came to foreign policy, Trump won. I think that Trump dodged a question, and it depends on what is the better thing: is dodging the question better, or is addressing it better? Trump didn't address January 6th very well. It's interesting that I'm looking on election betting odds, and everyone is saying that Harris won the debate because Harris is now flipped over and winning by 4% since the beginning of the day. But it's on Twitter, everybody's saying Trump won the debate.
Yeah, I think Harris did better than okay, a bunch of people on Twitter are also saying Trump lost. I don't know. And I'm someone who I like to think I'm pretty fair on this. Um, I've said Trump's lost before. I don't know. It looks like people
I
are.
feel like Trump lost the first debate with Hillary.
Oh no, he got
And
blown out.
and I feel like most of the debates with Biden were a draw, or Trump slightly won. Like Trump won like 55%, 45%. I'd say like this is like Trump won 65 or 70% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the second debate with Clinton is like hit an historic, like one of the greatest like the victories in a debate in American history.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that he won the third debate with Hillary. I think that he won this debate, but it wasn't like a landslide.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is similar to the third debate with Hillary.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't know. It looks like our opinion is in the minority, at least just from briefly looking through Twitter.
I don't know. I do echo chamber my Twitter. I did unfollow some people to try, just because I feel like they have like shit takes. So my Twitter's echo chamber more.
I kind of get tired of some of the black pill people, and I get that I'm a black pill person myself, but I think you have to, for your own sanity. I think to a certain extent you need to have a little hope in something. You know what I mean? Like you have to go, look, we got the fucking Haitians mentioned, stuff like that. It's something. So I don't know. I think it went pretty well. We'll see how the next one goes and what the election of it is.
What does the chat think?
Before
Before we leave, what does the chat think of who won?
Okay, you know
Are we
what?
making a
Let me
poll
just
on
make
the
a
chat?
poll. That's a good idea. We're gonna make a poll. We're gonna make the best poll that there's ever been. We're gonna poll the audience. We're gonna see.
He wasn't shystering that much during the debate, though.
Yeah.
He was talking. He wasn't shystering that much.
I honestly I think it's the most coherent I've ever seen him. And I know people will say I'm just sucking up to Trump, but I don't know, like
I think that Trump came across as masculine.
I think he also came across as saner.
Mm-hmm.
Then because I think you can argue he was very intense and that he was kind of aggressive, but he didn't come across as being like unhinged or like incoherent or stupid or anything like that. As I said, I don't know if I've ever seen him that well spoken before. Because I will often criticize, like Trump is often quite incoherent. Because he just jumps around so much. So you know what's interesting? So who he practiced debating with was Tulsi Gabbard.
Mm-hmm.
She was his debate practice. So I think it went pretty good. I think that it's probably slightly less entertaining, but I do find the debate a lot more watchable with the muted mic. It's a lot less cringy.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see here. Let me just see. So the poll is 92% said Trump won with 26 votes. But we'll see. We'll see what people say. Anyways, thanks for coming on, Serp. I appreciate it. It's always good to talk to you.
Oh no, I just really. So going into this, considering I don't know how many people are going talking about this right now. I think that the Biden versus Trump debate was the the most important in terms of like the consequences of the debate. Was the most important debate in American history now that it's been a few months. I don't think that any debate ever in the entire history of the nation has had such an impact upon the election than that debate for very clear and obvious reasons.
Well, you had a literal
So going
coup.
in, yeah, I mean, it led to Biden falling out of the race. So going into this debate, it's like I can't miss the opportunity to watch it live. I didn't watch the other one live.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I actually enjoyed it. It was watchable, and that is saying a lot, considering how cringe and unwatchable a lot of these things are. So I mean, I think that's a.
I think that the 2020 debates were. I don't think fully. I said in my endorsement video that I didn't think that the energy would come back from 2016. But I think that some of the energy is coming back now of 2016, especially with what's happening in Springfield, Ohio, and Trump pointing towards it. I don't think it's fully back to the Great Meme War, but I think the energy behind Trump is stronger than it was in
It's a bit more mature. It's a bit more refined. I mean, there's good aspects of that, and there's bad aspects of it. I don't agree with everything that's going on with this campaign. I think we can agree, though, that this is a lot better than the previous campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to wrap it up. Once again, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for letting me on.
All right. Well, God bless. Have a good evening.
You too.
Well, thank you, everybody. I know you always like Serp. I always like to talk to him, too. Serp is a great guy. He's the best guy. He's the kind of guy that you'd want working for your company. I can't do the Trump thing. But anyways, God bless. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. If there's another debate, we'll cover it. And